My wife smirked when I asked if she was cheating, so I showed up at her gala with a woman who made her invisible. That was just the beginning. I used to think I knew what love looked like. 5 years of marriage to Sabrina Collins had given me what I believed was an ideal life, the kind people post about on social media with perfect lighting and carefully crafted captions. I'm Ryan Cooper, 32, project director at one of New York's leading tech firms. The kind of husband who remembers anniversaries, buys flowers on random Tuesdays, and still tries to court his wife even after the honeymoon phase has long faded. But lately, something had shifted beneath the polished veneer of our marriage. The signs were subtle at first. Sabrina's kisses grew shorter, her excuses longer. She'd come home later and later from her high-profile event planning job, often reeking of expensive wine and perfume that wasn't hers. "It's just work, Ryan," she'd snap whenever I'd suggest a weekend away, or even just dinner at our favorite Italian spot. "Some of us can't clock out at 5. In public, Sabrina was magnetic, the poised 30-year-old who charmed CEOs and celebrities alike, the perfect accessory on my arm at corporate functions. At home, she was a stranger who drifted through our penthouse like a ghost, always distracted, always somewhere else in her mind. I told myself it was just the pressure. Planning events for Manhattan's elite wasn't easy. But then came the quickly deleted text messages when I'd walk into a room. The suddenly rescheduled gym sessions. Designer dresses that once made appearances at our date nights, now reserved exclusively for client meetings, I wasn't invited to. Still, I made excuses for her. That's what love does. It blinds you to the obvious. Makes you rationalize away the red flags until they're just decorative fabric fluttering in the wind. Friday night in March changed everything. My client canceled our evening meeting last minute, and I saw an opportunity. I'd surprise Sabrina with takeout from that authentic Italian place in the village she loved, the one with the handmade tagliatelle that she'd moan over like it was our first night together. Maybe we'd finally have that conversation about the European vacation I'd been planning as a last-ditch effort to rekindle whatever was dying between us. The moment I stepped into our Manhattan penthouse, I knew something was wrong. The silence felt deliberate rather than peaceful. A masculine cologne, not mine, hung in the air, mixing with the subtle scent of sex and secrets. In the living room, 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table, one with the crimson stain of Sabrina's favorite Merlot, the other nearly empty. A man's suit jacket draped carelessly over our custom leather sofa, charcoal gray, expensive cut. My heart stuttered in my chest, but my mind remained strangely calm, like I was watching someone else's life unravel in 4K resolution. I moved toward our bedroom, where a dim light spilled from beneath the door. Sabrina had texted earlier that she was working from home today, a rare occurrence that now made perfect, horrible sense. Her phone sat on the nightstand, plugged into the charger. As if on cue, it lit up with a message. From CM. "Same room tonight. Can't wait to have you." The passcode to her phone was her birthday. So painfully, stupidly simple. Within minutes, I uncovered an alternate universe where my wife had been living a double life for nearly a year. Explicit texts, nude photos, video clips that turned my stomach and burned my eyes. Hotel reservations that perfectly aligned with her late client meetings and overnight business trips. CM Chase Morgan, her personal trainer. For a few brief seconds, shock paralyzed me. Then, something cold and determined flooded my veins. Not rage, something more precise, more calculated. If Sabrina was so skilled at deception, then she deserved to experience what exposure truly felt like. Not in the privacy of our home, but in the arena she valued most, the court of public opinion, under the judgmental gaze of the elite social circle she'd worked so hard to impress. I heard the front door open just as I finished scrolling through months of betrayal. Quickly, I turned off the lights and settled into the armchair in the corner of our bedroom. Sabrina entered our apartment with the caution of a thief, tiptoeing in her Louboutin, checking her makeup in the hallway mirror before slipping off her coat. I could hear her murmur into her phone as she approached the bedroom. The idiot's still not home. I smiled in the darkness as she pushed open the door. "Welcome home, Sabrina," I said softly. "The game has only just begun." I woke up at 5:30 the next morning, a full hour before Sabrina's alarm. My body moved on autopilot, brewing coffee in the kitchen as sunlight began filtering through our floor-to-ceiling windows. The city below was already buzzing with Saturday morning activity, but inside our penthouse, a peculiar calm had settled. When Sabrina finally emerged from our bedroom, she played her part flawlessly. Hair tousled just right, silk robe hanging loosely on her frame. She approached me with a dutiful kiss on the cheek. "Morning, babe," she murmured against my skin, her voice carrying none of the venom I'd heard last night. "Sleep well?" I asked, my face a perfect mask of ignorance. "Like a baby," she lied effortlessly. I watched her pour coffee, noting how her eyes never quite met mine, how her fingers tapped nervously against the marble counter. For 10 days, I became the world's most attentive husband while simultaneously architecting her downfall. During lunch breaks, I transferred all her text messages, photos, and videos to an encrypted hard drive. Nights when she was working late, I was methodically tracking her credit card statements, cross-referencing hotel charges with the lies she'd told me about client meetings. I even installed a discreet recording device in our living room, capturing her hushed late-night calls to Chase that made my stomach turn. "Babe, I'll be home late Wednesday," she'd announce casually over breakfast. "The Richardson wedding is causing headaches." I'd nod sympathetically while mentally adding another receipt to my collection. The Plaza Hotel, room 512, always booked under her business account. On day 11, I called Vivian Brooks. We'd been friends since college, long before I met Sabrina. Vivian had never warmed to my wife, sensing something I'd been too blind to see. "It's about time," Vivian said when I finished explaining everything. "That snake has been shedding her skin in your bed for God knows how long. Remember what I told you years ago?" I did remember. At our engagement party, after one too many champagnes, Vivian had pulled me aside. "If she ever betrays you, call me. I know exactly how to make a snake shed its skin in public." Vivian's laughter had a dangerous edge when I mentioned Sabrina's name. "Oh, honey, you have no idea how long I've waited for this call. That woman has been condescending to me at every charity function for 5 years. When do we start?" The perfect opportunity was already scheduled. The spring charity gala on April 7th. Sabrina had been nagging me about it for months, insisting my attendance was mandatory for her image. It was her crown jewel event of the season, where Manhattan's elite gathered to pretend they cared about causes, while really just caring about being seen. I strategically forgot about it in our conversations, letting her believe I'd miss it due to work. Meanwhile, Vivian and I plotted our entrance, down to the last detail. She would wear crimson, Sabrina's signature color. I would wear a custom midnight blue tuxedo, not the standard black Sabrina always forced me into. My lawyer was discreet but efficient, filing divorce papers to be served immediately after the gala. He whistled low when I showed him the evidence. "With this, Mr. Cooper, you're looking at total asset protection. Her infidelity is so thoroughly documented, she'll be lucky if she keeps her shoes." Vivian called in favors with entertainment reporters who owed her. They'd be strategically positioned at the gala, cameras ready. I prepared an envelope containing just enough evidence to destroy Sabrina's carefully curated image, planning to hand it to her at the moment of her greatest vulnerability. Each night, I'd watch Sabrina texting Chase while sitting right beside me on our sofa, a smile playing on her lips that I once thought was for me. I no longer felt pain, only a cold, precise determination. The naive husband was gone. In his place stood a man who understood the game and intended to win it decisively. The night before the gala, Sabrina tried on her gown, a custom Vera Wang in champagne silk that had cost more than some people's monthly rent. She twirled before our bedroom mirror, admiring herself from every angle. "Sure you're not going to regret missing the biggest event of the year?" she asked, her tone dripping with mock concern. "Everyone who matters will be there." I took a slow sip of whiskey, savoring the burn as I admired the envelope resting in my suit jacket pocket. Photos, texts, hotel receipts, all neatly organized. "Don't worry about me, darling," I replied with a small smile. "I'll be there. You just don't know it yet." She laughed dismissively, turning back to her reflection. "Sure, Ryan, whatever you say." If only she knew what tomorrow would bring. The envelope felt heavy in my pocket, almost as heavy as the 5 years of lies I was about to make her answer for. The Grand Meridian in Midtown Manhattan glittered like a diamond against the night sky. Limousines lined the circular driveway as Manhattan's elite streamed into the spring charity gala in their finest attire. Photographers jostled for position, capturing every arrival for tomorrow's society pages. Vivian and I waited in her town car, parked just around the corner. "According to my source, Sabrina just arrived," Vivian said, checking her phone. "With Chase Morgan on her arm, no less. Bold move." "Perfect timing," I replied, adjusting my midnight blue tuxedo. "Let's wait another 20 minutes. I want her comfortable, drink in hand, thinking she's gotten away with everything." Vivian looked stunning in her custom crimson silk gown that hugged her figure perfectly. A deliberate choice, as red was Sabrina's signature color at these events. "Ready to watch a snake shed in public?" Vivian asked, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "I've been ready for longer than I realized." At exactly 9:15 p.m. we made our entrance. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Sabrina was just being announced as the event chair, the spotlight literally on her as we stepped through the grand doors. The murmur of conversation died instantly as heads turned our way. I felt a surge of satisfaction watching recognition dawn on the faces of people who had seen me for years as nothing more than Sabrina's compliant husband. Sabrina stood frozen at the podium, champagne flute in her left hand, her right arm casually linked through Chase Morgan's. I watched her eyes scan the crowd, then widen in shock as they landed on me. The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Chase, noticing her reaction, followed her gaze to me. When he recognized who I was, he yanked his arm away from Sabrina as if she'd suddenly burst into flames. I moved through the room with purpose, Vivian at my side, stopping to shake hands with CEOs and celebrities I knew through Sabrina's events. Each greeted me with surprise. Clearly, they hadn't expected to see me without my wife's permission. "Ryan, we missed you at the Henderson launch," said Richard Blake, a tech investor I'd met through work. "Been busy reinventing myself," I replied smoothly, sensing Sabrina watching our every move. When we reached Chase Morgan, I extended my hand with perfect politeness. His face was a battlefield of emotions, panic, guilt, and the desperate calculation of a man wondering if he could still salvage his reputation. "Morgan," I said, my voice carrying just far enough for nearby guests to hear. I had no idea personal training included hotel bed cardio. Quite the specialized service. He choked on his champagne, taking an involuntary step backward. "Cooper, Vivian tilted her head, her voice honey-sweet poison. "He doesn't do that workout anymore. Now he's practicing letting go." She patted my arm possessively, ensuring everyone watching got the message. Sabrina finally recovered enough to approach, her practiced smile strained to breaking point. She grabbed my elbow with crushing force, steering me toward the second-floor balcony hallway. "We need to talk. Now." The moment we were alone, the facade crumbled. Her hands trembled as she clutched her champagne flute. "Who the hell is she? What do you think you're doing here? You said you couldn't come." "I said a lot of things, Sabrina. So did you." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila envelope. Late nights at the office, client meetings, gym sessions. Her eyes fixed on the envelope. "What is that?" I handed it to her. "Your greatest hits collection." She opened it, and I watched her face cycle through disbelief, horror, and rage as she flipped through page after page of damning evidence. Time-stamped photos of her entering hotels, screenshots of explicit messages, credit card statements, hotel receipts. "You've been spying on me?" She forced a laugh that came out as a strangled gasp. "This is pathetic, Ryan." "No, what's pathetic is lying next to someone for 5 years while fucking someone else." Her strategy shifted instantly, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "If you make this public, we both lose. Is that what you want? To humiliate yourself too?" I stepped closer, my voice calm and controlled. "I'm not going to make anything public, Sabrina. I'm going to let you do that all by yourself." "You're destroying everything," she hissed, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'm not destroying anything," I replied softly. "I'm cleaning house." Her eyes darted around wildly, looking for an escape route, a lifeline, anything to regain control. but there was nothing. For perhaps the first time in her adult life, Sabrina Collins was completely at someone else's mercy, mine. I left her there on the balcony, clutching the envelope, her perfect world collapsing around her designer heels. Vivian was waiting in the hallway, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. She offered one to me with a knowing smile. "How's our cornered fox?" "Panicking," I replied, taking a slow sip. "And when a fox is scared, it starts biting its own tail." We made our exit 20 minutes later, mission accomplished. Cameras flashed as we descended the grand staircase to the exit, Vivian's hand tucked into the crook of my arm. A reporter from page 6 stepped forward, microphone extended. "Mr. Cooper, quite the comeback appearance tonight. Is there something going on between you and Ms. Brooks?" I looked directly into the camera lens, knowing Sabrina would see this footage tomorrow morning as her world imploded. "This isn't a comeback," I said, with the confident smile of a man who had reclaimed his life. "This is a rebirth." By 8 the next morning, Sabrina's carefully constructed world was in free fall. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications as headlines spread across every gossip blog and entertainment site in the city. Event planner to the stars, Sabrina Collins in year-long affair with celebrity trainer. Manhattan's power couple implodes. Ryan Cooper catches wife with fitness guru. Chase Morgan, training more than muscles for NYC's elite women. Someone, not me, had leaked screenshots of their explicit text messages, hotel receipts, and photos of them entering the Plaza Hotel together on nights Sabrina claimed to be working late. I had my suspicions about who might have accelerated the timeline, but I wasn't about to complain about efficiency. Sabrina called 17 times in the span of 2 hours. I watched my phone vibrate against the kitchen counter as I calmly sipped my coffee. Chase had gone completely dark, deleting all social media accounts. By noon, Elevation Fitness had released a statement announcing his termination for conduct unbecoming of our professional standards. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, who filed our divorce papers that morning, along with a formal request requiring Sabrina to vacate our apartment within 48 hours. Given the overwhelming evidence of infidelity, the judge had no trouble signing the temporary order. While Sabrina was presumably somewhere trying to salvage what was left of her reputation, I methodically packed her personal items into boxes and stacked them in the living room. Designer clothes that had cost more than some people's monthly rent now sat in cardboard, waiting for their exile. I closed our joint accounts, canceled her supplementary credit cards, and changed the passwords on our shared streaming services. A petty move, perhaps, but satisfying nonetheless. It was nearly 10 p.m. when I heard the key in the door. I'd been waiting on the sofa, nursing a whiskey and watching the skyline through our floor-to-ceiling windows. Sabrina burst in like a hurricane. Mascara streaked down her face, hair disheveled, still wearing last night's gown. "You've destroyed me!" she screamed, slamming the door so hard a framed photo fell from the wall. "My phone hasn't stopped ringing with canceled contracts. 5 years of building my business, gone in a day." I set my glass down carefully on the coffee table. "No, Sabrina, I'm not destroying you. I'm letting you twist your own neck." Her eyes darted wildly around the room, finally registering the stacked boxes. "What is this?" "Your life, packed and ready to go. The moving company arrives Monday morning." She lunged toward me, her voice oscillating between rage and desperate pleading. "You were cold first, Ryan. Always at work, always distracted." I said nothing. "I was lonely. Do you know what that feels like?" "Lonely?" I laughed softly. "I spent 3 years of weekends alone while you were working. I made dinner for an empty chair more times than I can count. Try again." "Chase was a mistake," she whispered, switching tactics, her hand reaching for mine. "A stupid, terrible mistake." I pulled away. A mistake isn't scheduled weekly at luxury hotels under fake names. A mistake doesn't have its own dedicated burner phone. A mistake isn't meticulously planned for over a year. I was confused. "No," I cut her off. "You weren't confused. You were cheap. You traded what we had for hotel room orgasms and the thrill of getting away with it." Tears streamed down her face, but they moved me no more than rain against a window. "You're being so cruel. The Ryan I married would never... The Ryan you married died the moment he saw those texts. You killed him with 1,000 small betrayals. She collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. What am I supposed to do now? Where am I supposed to go? That stopped being my problem the moment you started fucking your trainer. Her head snapped up. You can't just throw me out like a dog. I walked to the window, looking out at the city that suddenly seemed full of possibility rather than suffocating. I'm not throwing you out, Sabrina. I'm simply holding the door open. You chose to walk out of my life a long time ago. Even as I maintained my composure, I felt the weight of everything we'd lost. There had been love once. Real, consuming love. I remembered our honeymoon in Bali, her laughter as waves crashed around us. I remembered surprise anniversary dinners where I'd waited, food growing cold, for hours before she'd call with another excuse. Had all of it been a lie? Or had it simply died so slowly I hadn't noticed its last breath? After Sabrina finally retreated to the guest room, I went to our bedroom and opened the small safe hidden in the closet. Inside was a photo I'd kept since our wedding day. The two of us on Santa Monica Beach, sunset casting gold across our smiling faces. For a moment, I studied the image of the man I used to be, trusting and open. I tore the photo in half, keeping only my portion, and dropped hers into the trash. Tomorrow, I would clear away every last remnant of our life together. And then, the only thing left would be me. A week after the gala, Sabrina Collins had gone from Manhattan's most sought-after event planner to social pariah. Her downfall dominated every conversation in New York's upper echelons, a cautionary tale whispered over martinis at rooftop bars and dissected in excruciating detail on gossip sites. I watched it unfold from a distance, a silent observer to the destruction she had brought upon herself. 3 luxury brands had publicly canceled their partnerships with her. The charity foundation, whose board she'd fought so hard to join, quietly removed her name from their website. Former clients gave statements expressing their shock and disappointment. The tabloids, never satisfied with a simple scandal, had begun digging deeper. Rumors surfaced that Chase hadn't been her only indiscretion. A bartender at her favorite Soho lounge, a client's brother, possibly even a woman who worked at her office. I had no idea if any of it was true, but the Sabrina I thought I knew had died the night I found those messages. The woman who replaced her in my mind was capable of anything. Chase Morgan fared no better. Elevation Fitness released a formal statement condemning his gross violation of professional ethics and announcing his immediate termination. Within days, 3 more married clients came forward with stories of his specialized training methods that extended well beyond proper form and nutrition advice. He'd deleted all social media accounts and, according to Vivian's sources, fled to Tampa, where his brother owned a boat rental business. The fitness guru who once charged $300 per hour now hid from photographers on a dock in Florida. Sabrina's texts oscillated between desperate pleas and thinly veiled threats. "Please call me back," followed hours later by, "If you don't remove those pictures from circulation, my lawyer will destroy you." I deleted each message without responding, watching her spiral further with each unanswered plea. 3 days after she'd moved out, I was reviewing contracts in my home office when the doorman called. "Mr. Cooper, your ex-wife is here. She's quite insistent on seeing you." I almost refused, but curiosity got the better of me. "Send her up, but call me in 5 minutes with an emergency, if I don't tell you otherwise." When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished socialite with perfect hair and designer clothes. This Sabrina wore faded jeans and a plain sweater. No makeup covered the dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. "5 minutes," I said, stepping into the hallway rather than inviting her inside. "That's all you get." "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I know I don't deserve even that." We stood awkwardly for a moment before she spoke again. "Chase dumped me." A bitter laugh escaped her. The moment the story broke, he texted me that I was too much drama and blocked my number. "Shocking," I replied coldly. "A man who helps married women cheat turns out to be disloyal." She winced. "I deserve that." "What do you want, Sabrina? I'm busy." Her eyes welled with tears. I made a terrible mistake, Ryan. I didn't realize what I was throwing away until it was gone. You were the only real thing in my life. I studied her face, searching for manipulation but finding only desperation. No, I wasn't. I was an accessory that elevated your status, just like your Birkin bags and your Cartier watch. That's not true, she protested. Remember our trip to Santorini? How we got lost and found that little restaurant where the owner taught us to dance? Remember how we laughed until we couldn't breathe? I felt a twinge of something. Not love, but the ghost of it, the memory of who we'd been before the lies began. I crushed it immediately. Those memories died the first time you walked into a hotel room with him. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. I know I can't fix this, she said, but I need you to know I'm sorry, not just for getting caught, but for everything. There's a difference between regret and remorse, I said. Regret is wishing you hadn't been caught. Remorse would have stopped you before the first kiss. She stared at the floor, tears dropping onto the marble. What happens now? You move on. I move on. Separately. Will you ever forgive me? She whispered. I looked her directly in the eyes. You don't miss me, Sabrina. You miss having someone who would forgive your every transgression. That person doesn't exist anymore. She nodded slowly, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her wedding ring. She held it out, a pathetic peace offering. I thought you should have this back. I glanced at the platinum band, remembering the day I'd slipped it onto her finger, believing in forever. Then I watched it fall from my hand to the floor, the metallic ping as it hit marble echoing in the empty hallway. It's just metal, I said quietly. Just like you were just a shell. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her footsteps heavy and final. Back inside my apartment, I checked my email and found a message from my lawyer. Congratulations. Property and apartment ownership officially transferred to you. Proceedings complete. I poured myself a whiskey and walked the perimeter of my home. Truly mine now, no longer ours. The space felt emptier, but somehow more peaceful, as though a persistent background noise had finally ceased. I sank into the sofa, savoring the silence that surrounded me. A silence I'd been craving for longer than I realized, even before I knew why. Monday morning arrived with a crisp spring sunshine that felt oddly appropriate. At precisely 9 a.m., the moving crew buzzed from the lobby. 3 burly men in uniform arrived with dollies and packing tape, though they found little left to do. I'd spent the weekend methodically boxing up every trace of Sabrina's existence. These all go, I instructed, pointing to the 12 boxes neatly labeled Sabrina Collins in black marker. Address is on top. They worked efficiently, loading her designer clothes, shoes, jewelry, and mementos onto the service elevator. I watched from the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, feeling lighter with each box that disappeared. The last carton contained framed photos I'd removed from the walls, visual evidence of a life now revealed as fiction. Sabrina herself never appeared. Her final text had arrived at 6 a.m. I'm gone. Don't look for me. I read it once, deleted it without reply, and blocked her number. The ease of that simple action, blocking someone who had once been the center of my universe, should have been more difficult. Instead, it felt like closing a door on a storm. That evening, I lit a fire in the rarely used fireplace of my living room. From the drawer of my desk, I retrieved an envelope Sabrina had left behind. Her handwriting flowed across the front. Read this when you're ready to forgive me. Without opening it, I dropped it into the flames, watching the edges blacken and curl. Into the fire went our wedding photos, vacation snapshots, ticket stubs I'd sentimentally saved from our first dates. I kept only images that had value to me alone, places I'd loved, moments I'd enjoyed regardless of her presence. The fire consumed 5 years of memories, reducing them to ash and smoke. It should have felt tragic, but instead, I experienced a surprising peace. These weren't memories worth preserving. They were ghosts that needed exorcising. A week later, Vivian came by with an obscenely expensive bottle of champagne. She'd been instrumental in my resurrection, and there was something cathartic about celebrating with the one person who had seen through Sabrina from the beginning. To the survivor and the victor, she toasted, raising her glass. We settled onto the new sectional I'd purchased, my first furniture decision without Sabrina's input. The apartment had undergone a transformation. Gone were the fussy decorative pillows and pretentious art installations, replaced with clean lines and comfortable functionality. "How does it feel?" Vivian asked, studying my face. "Now that it's all over." I considered the question carefully. "It's not over," I said finally. "It's just beginning. I'm just starting to actually live." She nodded, understanding the weight behind my words. The final news about Sabrina came through a mutual acquaintance. She'd left New York entirely, retreating to a small town in Vermont where her older sister lived. Apparently, she'd taken a job as an assistant at a local event planning company, a dramatic fall for someone who once organized galas for celebrities and CEOs. Manhattan's elite, with their remarkable talent for selective amnesia, had already moved on to fresher scandals. Sabrina Collins, once the darling of the social scene, had become someone no one quite remembered inviting to their parties. I redecorated the apartment, erasing any reminder of our shared taste. New furniture, new art, new bedding, even new kitchenware. The space transformed from a showcase designed to impress others into a home that reflected only my preferences. Each morning I woke without the weight of pretense. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering which version of my wife would greet me. The freedom was intoxicating. Not freedom to be with someone else, but freedom to simply be myself. That evening, I stood on the balcony watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Manhattan. My phone vibrated in my pocket with a text from an unknown number. Just wanted to say, "I always knew you deserved better. Clara." I felt a slight smile form on my lips as I studied the message. The woman from the cafe who had once watched Sabrina condescend to me at events, who had reached out after everything imploded. Perhaps there were still people who could see my true worth, but this time, I wouldn't give it away so freely. Summer arrived in New York 3 months after Sabrina Collins vanished from my life. The city transformed with the season. Trees in Central Park exploded with green rooftop bars filled with laughing crowds, and a palpable energy vibrated through the streets. I developed new routines that belonged solely to me. Each morning, I rose at 6 to run through Central Park, when the air was still cool and the paths less crowded. My body felt lighter, my stride more confident. The heaviness that had settled in my chest during those final months of my marriage had dissolved, replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. My apartment no longer resembled the showcase it once was. Gone were the uncomfortable statement pieces Sabrina had insisted upon, replaced with modern, minimalist furniture chosen for comfort rather than impression. The walls, once covered with pretentious art selected to impress her social circle, now displayed photographs I'd taken myself, honest images that brought me genuine pleasure. For the first time, I wasn't merely existing in a carefully constructed facade. I was living. I enrolled in a weekend photography workshop, something Sabrina had once dismissed as pointless hobbyist nonsense when I'd expressed interest. The joy of learning something purely for my own satisfaction was intoxicating. I began taking weekend trips to nearby towns, hiking trails in the Catskills, exploring neighborhoods in my own city I'd never visited, all without needing to inform anyone of my whereabouts or apologize for my interests. Old friendships I'd neglected under Sabrina's subtle influence began to revive. College buddies I hadn't seen in years, colleagues whose invitations I'd declined too many times, cousins who'd stopped calling. I reached out to them all, rebuilding connections that had once formed the foundation of my identity. 2 weeks after Clara's text, I invited her for coffee at a small Brooklyn cafe far from the Manhattan social scene where Sabrina had reigned. Clara arrived in jeans and a simple blouse, her smile genuine, no agenda hidden behind it. She was refreshingly straightforward as she stirred her latte. "I used to watch you at events, you know. The way you'd scan the room for Sabrina, how your expression would change when she'd dismiss something you said." "Was I that obvious?" I asked. "Only to someone who was paying attention." She shrugged. "I always thought you deserved better than being treated like an accessory." I smiled, realizing how different I felt from the man she'd described. "I'm not that guy anymore." "I can see that," she said, studying my face. "You seem present, like you're actually here rather than worrying about pleasing someone else. We talked for 2 hours about everything from books to travel, to our shared love of authentic Mexican food. When we finally said goodbye, there was no pressure, no games, just a mutual agreement that we might see each other again, when we both want to, not because either of us needs something. Meanwhile, Sabrina's fall from grace had become complete. Vivian's friend in the event planning world reported that she was working as an assistant coordinator in a small Vermont town, handling wedding logistics for couples on modest budgets. The woman who once dominated Manhattan's social calendar now ordered flowers and folded napkins for country inn receptions. Chase Morgan had reportedly failed to launch a personal training business in Florida and was working at his brother's boat rental shop, his once lucrative career in fitness destroyed by the scandal. In late August, I was returning from the gym when I spotted a familiar figure waiting outside my building. Sabrina wore a faded hoodie that hung loosely on her thinner frame. Without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked smaller, vulnerable. When she saw me approach, her eyes lit with a fragile hope I'd never seen in them before. "I know I shouldn't be here," she said quietly, "but I needed to talk to you." I agreed to speak with her on the sidewalk, unwilling to invite her back into the space I'd reclaimed as mine. "Chase used me," she admitted, staring at the ground. "Everyone turned their backs on me. Even my family looks at me like I'm damaged goods." For the first time since I'd known her, Sabrina spoke without calculation. "It wasn't because you weren't good enough, Ryan. It was because I was never decent enough to deserve you." I looked at her directly, feeling nothing but a calm certainty. "I don't need your apologies. I need your silence. You've given me that for 3 months now. Don't break it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Do you still love me at all?" "I love peace more," I replied simply, "and you don't belong in that world." She nodded once, dignity finally replacing the manipulation that had defined her for so long. Without another plea, she turned and walked away, her figure quickly swallowed by the flow of pedestrians. I watched her go, surprised to feel neither hatred nor regret. She wasn't my ex anymore, just a ghost I'd finally laid to rest. That evening, I created a new playlist without a single song that carried memories of our life together. Standing on my balcony with a glass of whiskey, I watched the city lights flicker on as dusk settled over Manhattan. Looking back over everything that had happened, I realized what I'd reclaimed wasn't just freedom from a toxic marriage, but my own identity, the self I'd gradually compromised and eventually lost during those 5 years. Later, I opened my laptop and typed a single entry into the digital journal I'd started keeping. I didn't just survive betrayal. I transcended it, emerging stronger and more complete. When love comes again, I won't be seeking someone to complete me. I am already whole. As I finished my whiskey, my phone lit up with a message from Vivian. "Ready for that European adventure yet?" I smiled as I typed my response. Always ready for whatever belongs to the future. I locked my apartment door and stepped into the elevator, a sense of lightness in my chest that had nothing to do with forgetting the past and everything to do with embracing what lay ahead. And this time, I wouldn't be looking back.